Good morning, Park Bench. Good morning, Powell River. This is Austin McKinnon here with the fabulous Jurgen Koppen. Am I pronouncing your name right?
Close enough.
Jurgen?
Yeah, Jurgen. Okay. Jurgen is actually very good.
Thank
I get
you.
everything from yogurt to urine.
Yogurt, I like that. I knew a cat named Yogurt. Well, I'm here to learn a little bit more about how you went from making kayaks to being a mobile Mac repair. But my first question is, how did you choose to be here, Powell River, qathet region?
Well, I was looking for the place that had basically all the stuff that was important to me. Forests, nature. I wanted to be, away from the urban centers, yet still somehow have access to hardware, you know, and I mean, this is actually quite ideal here because we got oceans, we got mountains, we got the best weather in Canada.
That's true.
There simply is no better place in Canada.
They named it well, Sunshine Coast.
Yeah. And I did not want to go to the States for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And so this was basically when we discovered it. I mean, Cindy and I have been searching for quite a few months all across Canada and Vancouver Island, and the bells sort of started ringing when we came to Lund. And we were welcomed in Lund by Keith the Carver, who ran a little cafe there 30 years ago. And he told us that we need more people like you here, and so how could we resist?
And you listened. Very good.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So now we are here, and I still hold that Powell River per se is the best place in Canada, for all the reasons mentioned. And the community, of course.
Yes.
You know, like every time going into town, constantly running into people, and everybody's friendly and chatty. And so like you don't have that sense of isolation.
It is very welcoming.
Yeah.
Being so far out of town, do you find a community out here a little bit still?
Yeah, well, there is community here. I suppose I have turned into a little bit of a curmudgeon.
It's easy to do.
Yeah, because I mean, it doesn't get any better than here.
Yeah.
It's not stressful here. I don't have to burn gas to get anywhere. I just stay home, and now I do my once a week trip to Vancouver Island and into Powell River to do house calls for my Mac repair.
There you go.
Offers, and people seem to be interested in keeping their equipment on the road rather than bringing it to the dump and adding to the pollution.
It's definitely nice to not have to throw something away, especially when it's been working so well and just needs help, as we all do. Everything needs maintaining, people, technology. And
with Mac computers, well, actually with most computers, not only Macs but PCs, it is really 90% of the time it's always the same component that fails, which is the hard drive. The hard drive, or the internal storage device, is the most prone to fail, while the rest of the hardware could easily go for another 10 years. So I figured, well, why not inform people in my infomercials on Facebook that no, you don't have to replace a whole machine if there's only one tiny component that hardly costs anything.
And that's important to tell people about too, because it's so difficult to just try to learn to use the machine, let alone to maintain it and to know what those components can do. So the fact that you let us know how we can keep all these things, because most people actually love their devices. Parting with it and getting a new one is the most annoying. So avoiding that is great.
Yeah, that seems to be my market. I mean, people that recognize what you just said, and also the
and the waste.
Well, and the manufacturers. I mean, whether it is Apple or whether it is Microsoft or whether it is HP, and they don't tell their customers that it's actually very easy to maintain it.
Of course, they don't.
Because
they have a sales division telling them to shut up.
I guess that's really how it is, because corporate culture sets the tone, and they're really interested in profit, and that is really our problem. That's why the world is going to hell in a handbasket.
It's hard. Yeah. How do companies keep longevity in their products and still make money? They don't seem to be able to figure that one out yet.
Well, I would think selling parts and making it possible for people to maintain their machines, and not making shareholder profits the only goal. I mean, there is also the goal of surviving on the planet and, having a place for our children to live in. I mean, whether you're a shareholder or not, it ought to be somewhere there in the priority scale.
Yes.
But sometimes the obvious escapes the mind that is set to, one prime directive, and if the prime directive is profit, then we end up with a world that's going to die.
Yes.
Probably in our lifetime.
Probably. It is quite a conundrum that is not feeling solvable for the average person, which is frustrating.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I mean, we each as individuals can decide not to be as wasteful. I mean, I feel quite passionate about it. I mean, I got vehicles that are from 1979 and from 2000, and they're, because they're well-engineered vehicles, I can keep them on the road. There is no need to bring them to the dump and get other ones. But for some reason, there is this mentality in our society that the latest is the greatest, and I need to have that in order to be cool or to compete. Well, it's a bunch of marketing BS.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, and I don't buy into it. That is the other thing, living off the beaten track. I don't buy into every narrative, that my government or my industry, which is pretty well the same, is trying to present to us or is presenting to us. It is nice
to almost remove yourself. It's not being shoved at you so much, and then you don't even think to kind of just have it ingrained in you. Yeah.
So that's basically my goal. I try to set a precedent of living on the planet with the least possible environmental impact. I mean, I generate my own power here, and I don't, so I don't need Site C dam or, and a lot of people could generate their own power. I mean, and then they're basically off the grid and they don't have to toe the party line anymore. Right?
Yeah, that would be very interesting. I think, it might be difficult with younger kids. I know, like, I live close to the elementary school, so that we can get them to school every day and get them to see friends all the time. But I think, as they grow, I definitely want to be more remote. So this phase of life that I'm in is a lot more difficult, but it's doable. It's just a lot of decision making and a lot of commitment. But I look forward to the next phase where we can distance ourselves a little bit, and then they can be on to their next phase. And
seems to be a question of what priorities do you set for yourself. I mean, my priority has been for the last 10 years a simple goal: sanity.
Yes.
I mean, it shouldn't be asking too much.
No.
It seems to be, but common sense is not as common as you would think.
Yeah, I would think sanity would be on the list of basics, like water and food and sleep and shelter and safety, but somehow not as much. And
it seems that people don't even recognize how insanely the consumer society is behaving. Even though, we got forest fires to remind us, we got floods, we got, I mean, we're sitting here totally concerned about, whether we're going to have enough water to keep the squash alive until the bear comes and eats it.
Yeah.
And that is because of our consumer mentality, and it needs to change. And I'm trying to change it in myself. It's so hard when it's
happened to us one day at a time, and we haven't really seen, if you look at the end, you see that. And if from so far away, you can say, oh, let's avoid that. Let's do everything. But if it just happens the tiniest bit at a time, it's a lot harder to say, oh, this is terrible. It's saying, well, maybe it's not so bad, little by little. And it's hard. It's hard to recognize that for everybody. And it's hard when you think the people in charge who are supposed to know everything are supposed to be fixing these problems, and they're making it worse.
No, the people in charge also have the agenda of staying in charge.
Exactly.
There's this whole domination nonsense that everybody is functioning on. We think we're so civilized and so sophisticated. Meanwhile, the prime directives in this society are still like animal directives, namely, I need to dominate so I can breed. I mean, like, honestly, I mean, if you see these people with their mega trucks, I mean, this is all like rutting behavior, I would say. It
is hard, for sure. So do you find that people come to you at all, or is it always you going to them, or how does that work in terms of your proximity, your availability, and all that?
Well, my business is a home-based business. I don't really have a store. I don't have a storefront, period. And so I have presence on the internet, on Facebook, because I know it's widely being used. I inform people.
And are you able to help them remotely a lot of the time, or does it always have to be physically checking the hardware, checking parts of the computer?
Well, sometimes it is. I mean, with Mac computers, they really are well-designed machines. Sometimes a simple reset can fix issues. If the mouse cursor is all over the place, there's a system management controller reset, there's a primary reset, and sometimes I can help people just over the phone and just as a courtesy. And then other times I'll go over and pick up the machine. And because the other most common thing besides hard drive failure is dust getting sucked into the machine.
Yeah.
And then the dust, there's a little fan in there, although at least in the models that I'm still selling, between 2012 and 2015 was a good year for Mac laptops and iMacs. And so the machine needs to pull in air in order to cool the chips, which get warm and downright hot. And when the fan is pushing air into the radiators, there are actually little radiators like in a car, complete with fluid.
Yeah.
And the radiator gets plugged with lint, and then next thing you know, you got a layer of lint across your radiator. Now your chip is overheating, and as the chip overheats, the machine throttles itself down, gets slower and slower, so it doesn't burst into flame. Also good engineering. But I mean, you know,
but people don't know
if Apple would tell them how to, you know, take out 8 screws and take the dust out of the radiator, and then they're good again for a few years, and they won't end up frying their own chips, right? Yep. And anyways, yeah, we already covered that.
I appreciate that. It's very interesting. Yeah. Well, I thank you for sitting down with me today. I've learned a lot about computers and all sorts of things.
Thank you, yeah, for your interest.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's. Yeah, so for me, the system is basically I advertise on Facebook. I have infomercials on Facebook where I tell people about their options. And one of the options is for me to come by and help the machine to do another 10 years. Yeah. And there's also no need for the latest operating system, you know? Like people always think that the latest, they need to have the latest.
No.
Why? You know, I mean, if the old stuff is working, then keep it working.
Absolutely. And a good lesson to live by.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And
thank you.
Yeah. So to find the really old operating system, there's really old, I mean, like a decade old operating system, maybe, you know, what could be updated. And then there's always these security concerns, you know, and I don't, there again, I'm not really howling with the crowd there, because the people that want to provide security, like our Army and Navy and, you know, and our government, my question always is, who's protecting me from you? You know, if you all of a sudden, you know, get too big for your bridges, which you usually are, like, who's protecting me from you?
A completely legitimate question. Scary one to open that box sometime, but yep, it's a reality. Yeah.
Anyways, this is my take on that particular issue.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, it's been great to get to know you, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
That's it.
Thank you.
Cheers.